from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Wednesday night. And our phone number, if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And, of course, President Trump just wrapped up a huge rally in New York, Long Island, specifically Uniondale, New York. And I was out there not that long ago. Stayed at the hotel that's right there in the parking lot of that Nassau Coliseum. And from what I hear, by all accounts, massive crowd. Huge, right? There's always the crowd size issue. But this one was one of those. This is an indoor stadium that I think had somewhere between 16 or 19,000 seats. And the amount of people outside was like nearly triple or more than double what was inside. So kudos to El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, for pulling off an amazing rally of all places, New York. And we'll get to some of the clips on that and everything. A couple of things I want to go over tonight. There's a lot I want to get to. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela, had canceled Christmas, right? He said, no, we're not doing it. It's actually going to start in October because, he didn't like what people were saying and doing. So he just decided when Christmas would be. That's kind of how things work there. So we're going to get into that in a little bit as well. Let me see. There's a couple of other things here that I wanted to make mention of. The Aurora, Colorado police are now offering help to apartment complexes amid the gang issues from the Venezuelan gang, the Tren de Aragua. We're going to get into that in a little bit as well. Let me see. Congressman Eli Crane, former Navy SEAL, he says that the evidence he's seen makes it apparent that there's possibly a mole in the Secret Service. We're going to get to that as well. A lot of stories here. Let me see. On the issue of the economy, they have lowered interest rates. We'll talk about that. You know what? Right now, I should probably request for our resident in-house economist, Dr. E.J. Antoni, to come and make an appearance and explain it all to us. So I'm going to put that request in, and hopefully we'll have him by tomorrow. But that's that. And on this issue of the economy, the worries, the economic worries and woes to Americans are so severe that Hispanics are now flocking to Trump in the battleground state of Nevada, specifically on this issue, his handling of the economy. We'll get to that. And let me see, there's a new poll out. Let me see who put this one together. Scripps News and Ipsos. So Scripps News Ipsos poll. Majority supports mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. I'll read that again. Scripps News and Ipsos poll. Majority supports mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. The poll also showcases major partisan divides between voters and how to address one of the biggest topics of the presidential race, illegal immigration. But listen to these numbers. Republicans, 86% favor the idea of getting rid of every last person that's in the country illegally. Independents, 58%. Huge number. That's big. And then Democrats, 25%. I'll get into some of the analysis on that as well. But that's a really big number. Trump has a 10-point advantage on this issue because Hispanics think he's going to do a better job. And actually, all respondents in this poll think he'll do a better job on handling illegal immigration in the United States. So those are just a couple of things. And again, we're going to dig back into a lot of those topics as we go on throughout the evening. Before I introduce the guests, I do want to make sure I give you a couple of tidbits of what's going on in New York. So let's play this clip here. I think it's the first one you mentioned, Count D'Aquila. Go for it.
The message is it's time to stop the lies, stop the hoaxes, stop the smears, stop the lawfare or the fake lawsuits against me, and stop claiming your opponents will turn America into a dictatorship. Give me a break. Because the fact is that I'm not a threat to democracy, they are.
The only thing I could say about this is, I mean, A, I that's resoundingly true, and B, I just keep bringing it back to the basics. And sometimes I feel like I'm trapped in a bubble, a bubble, an echo chamber, if you will. I know you guys agree with me, and you hear this, and we've talked about it. But how is it that there are people at all, right? And I rarely make these types of statements. But how is it that there are people at all that think that Trump is the threat to democracy, when Trump is the one that's being, let's call it prosecuted, right? Let's just say you agree with all these charges. Prosecuted very aggressively. Many cases, 91 felony counts, 100 or 400 years in jail. I mean, just something very excessive. He's the one that's had 2 assassination attempts. The threat is on him. He's not the threat. Now, I know they're trying to make it seem like, well, if he wasn't such a threat to democracy, people wouldn't want to kill him. But that doesn't even make sense. It's not like the masses are trying to kill him, right? If he was such a threat to democracy, everybody at that Trump rally would be bum rushing the Secret Service to make their way, a beeline straight to Trump to end the threat. Clearly, that's not happening. Quite the contrary. Every city this guy shows up in, every state that he shows up in, he fills out these arenas. You're talking tens of thousands of people. Not just popular, incredibly popular. Never seen any president or presidential candidate do that. When Biden froze up like a robot and had to get walked off stage by Barack Obama. Do you remember that one? In L.A., they did a big fundraiser. That was a pretty big fundraiser. But it took 2 or 3 presidents, right? There were like 3 Democrat presidents there, or at least 2, in order to put that type of thing together, to get that kind of draw. Trump does this on his own. Trump could have ran without a running mate. No disrespect to Senator Vance. I think he's doing an amazing job on the campaign trail. But the reality is everybody knows that Trump, there is not a candidate that's carrying Trump, right? Trump didn't need a candidate to carry him through this election. He just didn't. He's hugely popular. So when people say that he is the threat to democracy, I just really think, come on. On that one, please, let's really have a discussion on that one. That's one I'm willing to debate with people. And I hate debating in the street, but if I'm at the supermarket and somebody says you're a threat to democracy, I'll say, well, hold on, come on. And it actually happened to me, which is why I don't have my bakery anymore. I had this great bakery that made ketogenic everything, right? They non-flour. They were, non-flour brownies, no wheat, none of that. And it tasted like the real deal. Amazing what they can do with like almond flour and stuff like that. Very expensive, these little treats, but super easy on your glycemic index, very low in calories, super low in carbs. They're great. You can eat 2 brownies and not gain anything. It's fantastic. Anyway, I want to get into all of this stuff. Of course, we're going to get into your calls and more in the 3rd hour of the show. Right now, I want to welcome our first guest, who is an investigative journalist from Venezuela. We're going to dig into all of these topics, like what's going on in New York, what happened at the Trump rally, what's going on with this Secret Service mole, and of course, the violent migrant gang from Venezuela, Tren de Aragua, taking over buildings all over the place in Colorado and seemingly expanding into other areas. We're going to find out all about that with Maibort Petit in a little bit. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank Thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Texas warned about a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua, or TDA, saying that it's now considered a Tier 1 gang in the state. Governor Greg Abbott signed a proclamation declaring the gang as a foreign terrorist organization. The governor noted that El Paso is at the middle of the issue, saying that law enforcement there has made more than 20 arrests at or around the Gateway Hotel. That's in the city's downtown area. The state is developing a database now to track suspected TDA gang members.
If we don't stop this now, it could spread rapidly across our state, endangering people across our state. We want to get ahead of that process and cut this off right now.
Well, the governor says the state's anti-gang centers, including one in DFW, are all working to identify suspected gang members.
That is a report from CBS 11 in Dallas, Texas, about the Tren de Aragua gang from Venezuela being labeled a Tier 1 gang. And this is good for Governor Abbott for getting in front of this, right? Because he doesn't want what's happening in Colorado to actually happen. I know people are saying, including the politicians in Colorado, they're saying, oh, there's nothing going on. We'll send the cops. We're going to help people out, but everything's under control. You know, things are tough around here. No. Guess what? Jenny Tare from the New York Post, she went down to Aurora, Colorado, and listened to what she had to say.
We recently went down to Aurora, Colorado to take a look at what the migrant gang Tren de Aragua from Venezuela has done in the area. And what we found is that they have, in fact, taken over apartment complexes and unleashed violent crime across the city. The gang swooped in largely through El Paso, Texas at the southern border, and then made its way to Denver and other sanctuary cities. Denver rolled out the welcome mat for migrants and received the most per capita in the United States. Then they went on to surrounding areas like Aurora, where apartments they found were very dilapidated, and they took advantage of that.
That, again, Jenny Tare from the New York Post. So I want to find out what's going on here. And to get to the bottom of it, we've got an investigative journalist from Venezuela, Caracas, Venezuela, who's out of New York City, and she's with us now. Maibort Petit, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure. So tell us a little bit now. You specialize in this transnational criminal organization and organized crime as part of what your beat, if you will, as an investigative journalist. Does it surprise you that Tren de Aragua is growing the way it is in the United States?
No, absolutely no, because when we start to learn about this band, we knew that they have absolutely connection with the regime that's happening in Venezuela. At the beginning, this Tren de Aragua was known in the Tocoron jail. It's a
right.
Very
now, when you
bad
say the
jail
regime,
in Venezuela.
Maibort, I just want to be clear. The regime you're talking about is the Hugo Chavez regime or the Nicolás Maduro regime?
That started in about, it was Chavez regime, it's the same.
Okay.
You know, Chavez regime and Maduro regime is just the same. And that started in 2008, the first news about these people that was working in Tocoron jail. But then we learned more, and I started to investigate it, how these people create one they call San Vicente Fundación. This is in Venezuela, very close to Tocoron jail, and they start to have connection directly with the government at that time, and then they secure the places, they get the money from the government to do or to be in charge of education in every single barrio, San Vicente, in Venezuela.
Yeah, and then they were also in charge of the jail as well, is that correct?
Exactly. They not only the jail, they have a space very big with more than 30,000 people.
Wow.
That they give health care. So they, in some way, they substitute the state for this criminal organization. They get the security for the people. They did extortion. They maintain the control, coercion, and the main guy from this organization called Héctor Guerrero became very close to the minister of jail in Venezuela, Iris Valera. And then we start to do pictures with those people and the governor officials. And later, that was about 2014, 2016, these people start to have control for the food that is given not only to the jail, is in this area close to the Tocoron jail. Then they start to be like a indoctrination for the people. And in one day, that happened in 2017, we learned how the people from the PSU, which is the Partido Socialista Unido de Venezuela.
Oh, the Socialist Party. Okay.
Exactly, Maduro and Chavez Party. They decide to show every single candidate from the state of Aragua to those people. So they support the candidate or they reject the candidate. It's the same that happened in Sinaloa, in Puebla, and so many places in Mexico,
right.
Happened in Venezuela. This organization is not working by themselves. They have connection directly with the military people in Venezuela, the army, and also the national police, the Congress, which is the Asamblea Nacional, and they grow a lot. One day they decide, the government decides to get through the jail because it was too many pictures, too many evidence in the media that something is going on in the jail.
Right.
They have a disco, they have bank, they have a swimming pool.
All of that was in the jail?
Yeah, and the most amazing thing is that they pay a very famous artist to go to the jail to have a party for Del Niño Guerrero and for all those, the big leader of the band.
Is the Niño Guerrero the leader of the group?
It was at that time. In this moment, the regime said that is no anymore, but we don't know where he is. Then they start to go, the first place it was in Colombia, then they went to Chile, to Peru, Latin American countries, and then came to United States. But when they came, and this is important to understand because it was a migrant crisis. Venezuelan people run away. It started in 2018, the massive one, and then when the border is open in the United States, the regime put people who come in because they need a new opportunity, and these guys.
Right, and everybody that comes here from Venezuela, they don't take anybody back when they try to deport them. So it's a win-win if you come from there. Maibort, I want you to hang on for a second. Thank you, because we have to take a commercial break here. But everybody, we're on with Maibort Petit. She is an investigative journalist based out of New York City, but from Venezuela, Caracas, Venezuela. And we're going to continue our discussion on the Tren de Aragua, illegal immigration. And I'm also going to get her thoughts on this story coming out from Congressman Eli Crane suggesting that there might possibly be a spy, a mole inside of the Secret Service as to why Trump is continually being targeted. So keep it locked right here. We're coming right back with our guest, Maibort Petit, and me, Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Look at these numbers out just this morning. It shows a majority of Americans support mass deportations for undocumented immigrants. This poll was taken after that first debate. It was at the height of some of that controversy dealing around Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. So it's a huge issue in the campaign right now. And these numbers reflect just how much of a priority it is. But one of the more interesting things is when you break it down by party. Yes, it is driven mostly by Republicans. Nearly 90% of Republicans say they support it. But look at independents, 58%, more than half of independents say they're also in support. And even Democrats, a quarter of Democrats supporting either somewhat supportive or strongly supportive of mass deportation. I think that's a number that jumped out at a lot of us, a lot higher than you would think given the current rhetoric.
Again, new poll out from Scripps News and Ipsos that shows 58% of independents, 25% of Democrats, and 86% of Republicans strongly support or somewhat support a policy of mass deportation for illegal immigrants in the country. And this is it's not a surprise to me, but it's a good thing, I think, because we've got a problem, and I don't know how else to fix it. Trump at his rally tonight made it clear. He said it's just unsustainable. We don't really have a choice. There's no other way to go about it. I want to get some reaction to this from Maibort Petit. She is investigative journalist from Venezuela, joining us tonight from New York City. Maibort, when you hear about this poll that the majority of Americans favor mass deportation, is this something that you think is out of the ordinary? Does it come as a surprise, or do you think it's right on target?
I believe this is the only way to stop this problem that we have in the United States in this moment, because most of the people who came illegally, they are in New York. I'm talking about New York in this moment.
Sure.
They go through, we have tonight a big problem because illegals, people who doesn't want to pay the transportation goes against the police. We have problems in the stores. People go and want the stuff for free. They destroy everything. They destroy the private property. Not everyone, but most of the illegals that coming with this reason to destroy United States, to destroy the system. We were talking before about the Tren de Aragua, and
yes.
I will tell you that this is just the beginning. They want to go to the places where they can get money, they can do illegal things, and they don't have any intention to stop, because when you open the border, when you cannot be checked, they don't have even identity. The people who are in jail in this moment in New York, they were illegal. They didn't, even the United States doesn't know if these people call like they say, or they born the day what they say, because it's no legal document.
Right, they're using fake documents when they get here.
It's a big problem. And then if we talk about in New York, what we get from those people, the government is just broken. They don't have money to pay all these big hotels. We don't have the money in the city to pay the new food. They coming to depend of the public money.
Yeah,
and
public
it's no way any country in the world. I just came from Spain, and they have the same problem there, because the government, the citizen, cannot pay all those people who come in not to work, not to be part of the workforce. They come in to get the free money from the government. You will be, astonished about what happened in my country. They have published news in the social medias asking the people to come to United States, because here the food is for free. You don't have to pay rent. They give you clothes. They give you a credit card with money. So they're not going to stop. It was like last week. We learned that it is about 20,000 people from Venezuela in this new crisis that is coming. I don't know where they are in this moment, but last week they were in Panama, and they are coming to United States because they are following the advice of many people that are here living for free. And they cannot do that in Venezuela or in another country because it's not possible for the state or for the citizen to pay the people to come. It's no way to sustain that. So I agree that somebody have a good idea to put the final point in this situation. Also, we have to open our eyes because Kamala Harris went today to talk to the Latin people. And they offer a good solution for the people who are coming and they don't have a status. And they are working in this. So I remember when she started to be the czar of the immigration.
At the border?
Yeah, she went to Mexico. She went to Guatemala. She spoke with Honduras. I was in Tegucigalpa when she went with the new president, which is very, very socialist, very close friend of Maduro. And
let me ask you a question, Maibort, before you finish this story, because I'm fascinated, right? I really don't understand how this idea from Karl Marx of the Communist Manifesto and socialism, how does that make its way so deeply into Latin America? You see it in Brazil, you see it in Venezuela, you're seeing it in many places. I understand in the Caribbean, you had Chavez and even in Puerto Rico, right? In Puerto Rico, they have a lot of leftists there that subscribe to this. But does it come by way of the university system, or did they have like evangelists going door to door 100 years ago pushing communism? How did they get there?
Oh, they get there because the universities, most of them, and they following Gramsci ideas, and they
Gramsci.
did. And some of the state, they push. In Venezuela, in last century, we have people in the university teaching Marxist. I went from Venezuela to Paris to do political science. And when I arrived in Paris from Caracas, the first class that I took in the Sorbonne University was Karl Marx. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in Caracas or I'm in Paris. But in United States, it's also the same thing. Most of the university, when you arrive, you are conservative or you are against the socialism system. They don't like you there. Many people in the universities in the United States, they are indoctrinated. They talk about Venezuela in this moment because the Democratic Party don't like Maduro anymore. But before, I learned it. I went to the university. They loved it, Chavez.
Yeah.
And Chavez
yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did here. And they did in Argentina.
They love
wherever you
Fidel
go,
Castro.
Yeah, they love Fidel Castro, and they love, and so many people is you see from Argentina until Mexico, they love some people like Bashar al-Assad. So they don't like to talk against Kim Jong-un. So it's so hard to understand if you don't get to the point that the universities in Latin America, in Europe, and in the United States, also in Canada, they are indoctrinating the new
It's like a global movement for leftism. Maybord, I have to take another commercial break, but we're going to come right back, and you can finish your story about being in Honduras when Kamala Harris was there. Folks, I like to call her Que Mala Eres, by the way, because she is so bad. We're coming right back with Maibort Petit. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And together, CHC, we must also reform our broken immigration system. And protect our dreamers and understand we can do both, create an earned pathway to citizenship and ensure our border is secure. We can do both, and we must do both. And while we fight to move our nation forward to a brighter future, Donald Trump and his extremist allies will keep trying to pull us backward. We all remember what they did to tear families apart. And now they have pledged to carry out the largest deportation, a mass deportation in American history. Imagine what that would look like and what that would be. How's that going to happen? Massive raids? Massive detention camps? What are they talking about?
That, of course, is Vice President Gabe Kaminsky speaking at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus today, addressing Trump's plan to fix illegal immigration in the United States. Our guest is Maibort Petit. She is an investigative journalist from Caracas, Venezuela, who is joining us tonight from New York City. And Maibort, you were telling us a little bit about where you left off with you were overseas at the time that Kaminsky was visiting the Northern Triangle, telling everybody, don't come. Let's pick it up from there.
Yeah, because at that time she was the vice president and the czar in the borders.
Yeah, the borders.
Yeah, well, she went to Tegucigalpa. At that time, there was the beginning of the government of the socialist Xiomara Zelaya, which is now involved in some drug cartels activities. But
what a surprise!
Yeah, it was so difficult for us to see what she said in Mexico also, because she was saying during the campaign to everyone can come. And I remember the advertising what they did. But when she went to Mexico and to talk in Honduras, she changed. She changed her speech. And now, today, she also changed the speech. And she forgot that she was in charge of the border during the last almost 4 years.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to see what is going on in the border, Rich, and it's not possible to continue a country working and function in the way that United States was if they don't close the border. Today, I was asking a journalist in New York. She's pro-Kamala, and she's working a big media here, and she asked me, why you don't want the people to come if you came? And I said, no, I came legally. That's the difference.
Right.
Something is coming legally and put your paper and your effort and follow the law, and something different is across the border and come directly to New York to get a check for $2,000. This is something different. And it's not possible. Any state in the world can do that. Germany is changing the politics because they can't afford the illegal immigration.
Yeah, after all of the rapes and all of the stabbings and every other problem they had.
It's crime. If the people come here and they don't follow the law, they don't care about the country. And that's what we are seeing now. It's not new, of course. People coming illegally for many years, but now it changed because the border is open, and it's no way because the border patrol is out of capacity to control everyone who's coming. It's massive. It's too many people. You have to go to the border and see what is going on there, and you will see that if you don't stop this, United States won't be the same. By the way, if we don't have a strong government, United States won't be the same. In this moment, we don't know who is taking or making decision in Washington, D.C., but the immigration is one of the biggest problems, and the crime is security, is open the door for the enemy. It's not only Venezuelan or Cuban or Nicaragua. They are coming from China. We follow the route, coming from China to Ecuador, Ecuador to Colombia, Colombia to Panama, and they across the border with all those people who coming from Honduras, from El Salvador, from Guatemala. So the enemy have the door open, and they can come. They can come by plane, and they can come by the border. They can come by plane, and they can be a spy and decide what the governor of New York say or not, or which country they're going to support. But they come in by the border, and they are not coming to say hello to United States and to be nice. No.
Yes, sadly,
most
they're
of the
coming
people,
to make problems.
No. They coming to have problems. Well, of course, not everyone. We don't have to be general. Some people come because they need money and they work here, but they have to follow the law. Like everyone, follow the law. If you want to go in this moment as American to somewhere in Europe, they changed the law for American people. And now you have to go and you have to make some papers to be there. So
it's funny. Before, when you were saying that, I was thinking everywhere I've ever been, as a tourist, right? You have to fill out a visa. I couldn't imagine just moving to another country because I would think they're going to get me. They're going to deport me. They're going to want tax money.
If they don't open the door, they became violence. There is a lot of videos that show in Texas, and that's why the people in Texas want to deport everyone, because I have a friend in Texas. Too many Venezuelan people in Texas. But I had a friend in Texas. She's here for 30 years, and she couldn't believe that's happening in her house because all these guys came and they stole everything, including the barbecue and the toy for the dog from her house.
Wow.
So she said, this is so ridiculous. And here in New York,
Nothing surprises me in New York anymore, Maibort. Maibort, I have to pause here because we have to take a commercial. I want to thank you for everything. Let everyone that's listening know, how do they find you? How do they follow your work?
I have a show in Spanish in YouTube called Sin Filtros with Maibort
Without
Petit.
filter. Okay.
And in my Twitter account, or X, and also I have a blog called Venezuela Politica Info. And it's an organized crime blog. We talk about drug dealers, corruption in Venezuela and in Latin American countries.
Nice. Kid stuff. Maibort, I'm going to get everybody the spelling. Maibort Petit is Maibort. Petit, Petit. You could get her at Maibort Petit on Twitter. Of course, you can go to her website as well. Maibort, I want to thank you for being here. Keep up the good work, and gracias por estar con nosotros.
Muchas gracias por invitarme. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Likewise. Thank you. Folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. All right, I'm looking for this clip. Oh, we don't have time for that one. Was there a clip that I mentioned to you before, Count Dracula? All right, don't worry about it. Anyway, oh yes, it was number 16. But don't worry, we don't have to go to that now because we will run out of time. What I will do is go to cut number 14. It's just a flashback, and I'll play this again when we come back. Well, never mind. The music's here. This is shorter than I expected. All right, folks. We've got a whole other hour coming at you. Forgive me for that. I was looking at the seconds clock, and I don't know how to tell time tonight. Anyway, we're going to talk about what's going on with the State Department, with the deep state, with the federal government, censorship, and so much more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And that's Valdez with an S, by the way. And if you want to join us, feel free. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And it's hour number 2. In hour number 2, we've got a lot to discuss. I want to talk about how the federal government, the State Department in particular, censored conservative-leaning journalists and opinions, really, right? Things that they don't like and facts that they don't like. We're going to get into that in a second. Plus, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, had a rally, a big rally. Something like 50,000 people is what I'm hearing was estimated to have been there. Massive overflow. And I know this place. I've been there. Recently stayed at the Marriott that's right outside of there during the Talkers Convention. The Talkers Convention was right across the street. And man, big parking lot. A lot of people fit in that parking lot. They had some jumbotrons out there. I saw a lot of coverage of it, and good for them. It's always a nice thing to see a bunch of people get together for MAGA, right? When you're in the big blue state of New York. So kudos to everybody out on Long Island Loud Majority, and everybody else that was out there. They gave a big shout out to my Gumbari Cheech, as my buddy Curtis Lewa says, Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor. It was just really, really a good time. And I want to play a clip for you because President Trump really he was knocking him out of the park tonight. And he said, look, surviving death twice has really fueled his mission to make America great again. Listen to this.
And God has now spared my life. It must have been God. Thank you. Not once, but twice. And there are those that say he did it because Trump is going to turn this state around. He's going to turn this country around. He's going to make America great again. And maybe. And we're going to bring back religion into our country. Bring it back. These encounters with death have not broken my will. They have really given me a much bigger and stronger mission. They've only hardened my resolve to use my time on earth to make America great again, for all Americans to put America first. Going to put America first.
That's, again, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. And I think he's right. You know, he sounds invigorated. He looks invigorated. Good for him. And we need all the help we can get, right? This isn't really about Trump. This is about you and me, the American people, we the people. And everything to me is on the line here. That doesn't mean that if, we don't win an election, our rights disappear. We'll always have the Bill of Rights, at least in theory, right? But in practice, will we? Right? Because one would surmise that, yes, we have the Bill of Rights today. But do we? Because I remember, not this spring, but the prior spring. Remember the Twitter files when Elon Musk bought Twitter and renamed it X and all that stuff? And Matt Taibbi, who's a liberal, and he did a bunch of really good investigative journalism, put a lot of stuff out there, and he appeared before Congress, right? And he had an exchange with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I want to play a little clip of that just to give you a little flash down memory lane. Check this out.
You stated this on Joe Rogan's podcast about being spoon-fed information, and I quote, "I think that's true of any kind of journalism," and you'll see it behind me here. "I think that's true of any kind of journalism. Once you start getting handed things, then you've lost. They have you at that point, and you got to get out of that habit. You just can't cross that line. Do you still believe what you told Mr. Rogan? Yes or no? Yes or no?"
Yes.
Good. Now, you crossed that line with the Twitter files.
No.
Elon Musk, it's my time. Please do not interrupt me. Elon Musk spoon-fed you his cherry-picked information, which you must have suspected promotes a slanted viewpoint, or at the very least generates another right-wing conspiracy theory. You violated your own standard, and you appear to have benefited from it. Before the release of the emails in August of last year, you had 661,000 Twitter followers. After the Twitter files, your followers doubled, and now it's 3 times what it was last August. I imagine your Substack readership, which is a subscription, increased significantly because of the work that you did for Elon Musk.
And again, you could see Democrats coming hard on Taibbi for this, but since then, it's gotten worse, right? And there's an exclusive report by the New York Post just uncovering some shocking internal documents revealing that the State Department, our federal government, is undermining investigative reporting not only by Taibbi, but also by Gabe Kaminsky of the Washington Examiner. Now, these documents expose the department's involvement in a government-funded effort to blacklist conservative media outlets. And we talked about this at the time, right? Labeling things as misinformation. And I believe they called it the Global Engagement Center, and they created some sort of index around it. And, you know, they even had a czar at one point, right? And then they got rid of the czar, and she was a real crackpot. But this stuff continues, and now there's these new documents, so there's an update to this, and we've got none other than Gabe Kaminsky from the Washington Examiner, investigative journalist, with us tonight. Gabe Kaminsky, welcome, sir.
Rich, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm happy that you're doing it. Ultimately, right, the work of any journalist worth their salt is to be the watchdog of the people, right? We, the people, need people asking questions. And if you're not allowed to ask questions because they don't like you or they don't like your opinions or the facts that you're sharing, then we've got a real problem. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, happy to kind of describe the sequence of events here. Last January and February in the Washington Examiner, we reported on the State Department's Global Engagement Center. It's an office in the State Department, and their funding of a group based in London called the Global Disinformation Index. The State Department gave that entity $100,000, which we first reported. The notable nature of that funding is that we had found that the Global Disinformation Index is engaged in a covert operation aimed at blacklisting media outlets that they deem to be peddling alleged disinformation or misinformation from receiving advertising dollars. Now, the kicker of that is that we found that all of the media outlets that they are targeting, that they are pressuring advertisers to defund and deplatform, are on the right side of the aisle. Conservative or libertarian-leaning news sites such as the Washington Examiner, such as Real Clear Politics, which I would rather say is rather center, maybe center-right, Reason Magazine, Newsmax. All of these outlets have been targeted through this blacklist, and we had unearthed that the State Department had funded the group behind that blacklist, which prompted sort of a whole litany of a congressional investigation. It's prompted lawsuits. It launched a new law, actually, that passed Congress through that bans the Pentagon from allocating certain funds to the Global Disinformation Index. What the New York Post reported, that what you had cited this week by a great reporter named Josh Christensen, what Josh had unearthed are internal State Department documents that the Post had reported were used to kind of internally discredit myself and through his publishing of the Twitter files in order to, push back internally on the reporting and sort of say that the State Department has no relationship to any of these censorship entities. The memo is notable for a few different reasons, but I think I just want to highlight this. In that memo, besides their pushing back on claims, which would make sense that they would craft press guidance, they actually did something else that has launched a whole separate congressional investigation. In that memo, they misquoted Jim Banks, an Indiana Republican congressman. Right. They said in that memo that Jim Banks was quoted discussing my story in the Washington Examiner in a Russian state media outlet, And in that memo, they were intentionally sort of, it appears, and this was what the Post had reported, it appears they were trying to link Jim Banks to this Russian state-controlled media outlet in saying that he was speaking to them internally. And the reality of it is that Jim Banks did not speak to a Russian state-controlled media outlet about censorship of conservative voices. He had spoken to the Washington Examiner. That's where that quote originated. But they intentionally, it appears, misquoted Mr. Banks in that memo to insinuate that he himself was pushing disinformation. And so Jim Banks had saw that and was infuriated, and he actually sent a letter to Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State in the Biden administration, earlier this week to request information about that. He gave an October 1st deadline.
Gabe Kaminsky is from the Washington Examiner, and he's on the blacklist. And now you know why, because he knows what he's talking about, and he's spitting facts over here. Gabe Kaminsky, I want you to stand by. We're going to take a quick pause right here. We're going to come right back. I want to hear the rest of the story because we should all be outraged at something like this. The fact that, people that are actually doing the work, the shoe leather reporting, really, a yeoman's job here. And this is the thanks you get. Disinformation, misinformation, and being stifled and maligned by our own federal government. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back with Gabe Kaminsky.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you until 1 a.m. Eastern time. And our guest is Gabe Kaminsky. Gabriel Kaminsky is an investigative journalist with the Washington Examiner. He's with us now. We're talking about how he's been blacklisted along with Matt Taibbi because of his reporting. And this is obviously problematic. We left off, Gabe Kaminsky, with your comment about being censored following the most recent memos that were the censorship happened, but the most recent uncovering of these memos.
Yeah, that's right. I would just emphasize. Yeah, that's right. I would just emphasize the memo that the State Department crafted. I wouldn't really say that was an example of censorship against me, although I guess maybe the Post would think so. But I would say that it was a response to our extensive reporting at the Washington Examiner and of really a wide variety of examples of the Global Engagement Center, an arm of the State Department, being involved with an organization called the Global Disinformation Index that has worked in a very extensive basis to suppress conservative media outlets. And I'll give you an example. The Global Disinformation Index, how it essentially operates is each month they send something called a dynamic exclusion list to advertising companies, and advertising companies subscribe to that thing called a dynamic exclusion list, which essentially is a blacklist, rather. Yeah. And on that blacklist includes media outlets that the Global Disinformation Index deems to be peddling disinformation. And so each month, advertising companies that subscribe to that thus block any content from appearing on websites deemed to be disinformation. It's an incredibly impactful and lucrative operation that has resulted in many millions of dollars being stripped from websites due to this group's, what we found, faulty determinations of what constitutes disinformation. Specifically, a great example of this, Rich, is that the Global Disinformation Index, the British entity I was mentioning, which I would note is funded by the likes of George Soros and the British government, they determined in 2020 and 2021 that any media outlets, no matter their orientation, were peddling disinformation if they were running stories on the COVID-19 lab leak theory. The notion that the coronavirus emerged from the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. Well, it turns out that not only is it not disinformation to right about that theory, but it's actually the most probable cause of COVID-19. The FBI last year determined that the most likely origin of the coronavirus was from a lab in Wuhan, China. The Energy Department made a similar determination, I believe it was a year prior. Similarly, and another great example of the Global Disinformation Index's work, again, that State Department-funded entity, is that they determined it was disinformation when a colleague of mine in the Washington Examiner published a story on findings from a social science research study that found that, on average, conservative men and women are happier with certain parts of their lives than liberal men and women. Again, this is a study, and these are findings, but they're facts.
You're reporting on a study that found these things.
Correct. That's not even an opinion. That is just a study that was conducted that concluded something that wasn't something they liked.
Wow. Now, tell me about the link here between Soros and this $250,000 that he poured into to the Global Disinformation Index.
Sure thing. So the link is very direct. It's that George Soros, a Democratic mega donor, one of the biggest financiers of Democrats in elections, he runs the Open Society Foundation. So rather, his son, actually, Alex Soros, recently
who's always in the White House, by the way.
Yes, he frequently visits the White House. So George Soros's network, they've granted funds to the Global Disinformation Index as well, just simply to the American charity of the Global Disinformation Index. The GDI operates in England and America.
Wow. It's like a crazy tangled web. Now, Gabe Kaminsky, we're down to like a minute and a half. I want you to let everybody know, what you think the next shoe to drop is going to be and how people find you.
Yeah, I would say that this is going to be a continued saga. Here's the next shoe to drop. Two things. There's an annual State Department appropriations bill that passed the House and is being negotiated in the Senate. If that bill passes, that would ban the State Department's Global Engagement Center from getting funding. It would be a huge loss to its ability to operate. That's a major development that we'll see what happens. The second thing is there's a lawsuit going on. The Federalist and the Daily Wire and the state of Texas are suing the State Department's Global Engagement Center for funding this, in their mind, censorship operation. That lawsuit is going to discovery, and we're going to be able to see a lot more documents like the one that New York Post published. So it's going to be interesting to see. And if you follow our reporting at the Washington Examiner, and I'm on Twitter at Gabe Kaminsky, Gekaminsky, you can read all about our stories.
Outstanding. Folks, give him a follow there. Check out the Washington Examiner website and go to Gabe Kaminsky author page. He's got a number of excellent stories on here. Gabe, great reporting. Keep up the good work and standing up for the truth.
Thank you very much, Rich. Have a good night.
You bet. God bless. Hope to talk to you soon. And folks, we continue our conversation with you, all the American people, at the top of the next hour. It's Open Phones Across America. And up next, just imagine there's so many people that don't like their boss. Imagine if your boss was actually created by artificial intelligence. Do you think having an AI boss would be better than having a human boss? Well, we're going to talk to the CEO and founder of Allata, Matt Rosen. He's going to explain a little bit about AI bosses to us. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
A lot of people say I do a tremendous job. And Rich Valdez does a tremendous job, I can tell you that. He's a fantastic person.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Are robot CEOs the future of the workplace?
Hello, I'm Mika, the world's first experimental AI CEO at Dept.
Mika is the newest employee and experimental CEO of a company in Poland.
My decision-making process relies on extensive data analysis and aligning with the company's strategic objectives. It's devoid of personal bias, ensuring unbiased and strategic choices that prioritize the organization's best interests.
Day-to-day tasks for Mika at the liquor company include choosing artists to design the brand's bottles.
I meticulously research, conduct background checks, and verify potential client lists, providing well-reasoned decisions to the board.
A bonus about the robot employee, she never uses vacation days.
Well, as a robot CEO, I don't really have weekends. I'm always on, 24/7, ready to make executive decisions and stir up some AI magic.
That is a report from Inside Edition on AI CEOs. And I want to get to the bottom of this because I hadn't heard about this. I've heard about people who are lonely and getting AI boyfriends and AI girlfriends. I've heard of people using AI rather than going on a diet to look skinnier. I've heard of people going on AI to make themselves older or younger. And all sorts of things, right? AI to have like predictive text when people are feeling depressed or sad, which is not a good idea. But AI therapy, I've heard of that. But I haven't heard of, let me get an AI boss. And maybe you have one. Definitely give us a call, 833-482-5337. I'm going to your calls right after this. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. But I want to talk to a real CEO. He's the CEO and founder of Allata, and Matt Rosen is back with us. Matt Rosen, talk to us about what it's like to have an AI boss and where this concept is coming from.
Yeah, there's been some interesting studies and press out there about you might be answering to a robot one day. And there's actually a company or two out there that are using robots to assign tasks, try and give pet messages to employees, things of that nature. But I've seen it's only in a few test cases. I, for one, am not a robot, and I don't think you'll be having a robot boss anytime soon, Rich. It's an interesting concept and thought, but I think there will always be a need for a human in the loop, whether it's AI working as your coworker or AI assisting human managers as they manage large workforces and distribute tasks.
Yes, I'm reading this here, and listen to this, Matt Rosen. I think this is pretty interesting. The AI manager that they're looking at in this, it makes suggestions to improve the wording of written text. It's answering work-related questions, etc., and has a central portal. But it achieved a 44% success rate in getting employees to pre-plan their workdays in advance and was able to motivate employees to log in on time 42% of the time. I'm thinking that's less than half. That's maybe as good, if not worse, than human bosses. These figures were comparable to the human manager in this study that they're looking at, who achieved scores of 45 and 44%. Okay, so I was sort of right there. And the AI manager worked in partnership with a human manager. Together, they achieved 72% success rate. So that, to me, makes the most sense. If I were a manager and I'm like, hey, make sure you're at work on time. Let me set up my AI to remind you and coach you and, kind of be there when I'm not. I think that makes the most sense. Do you think that's going to be employed in the future, or is that something that is being used now?
Today, I think most organizations, and, as an organization, we're a technology consulting firm that are really helping our clients really survey the landscape and understand where to use AI. They're developing proof of concepts. Very few companies outside of Silicon Valley have actually deployed AI on a really large scale outside of maybe banking and some of the drug development companies. Most people are just putting their toe in the water. But I do see AI playing a really pivotal role, not only for bosses, but for all people. We'll think of AI as our coworker. And if you think about what a boss does and where AI can help, it's in scheduling, it's in analyzing data, it's doing performance tracking, it's optimizing workflow. Also, if you have someone show up late 5 days in a row, you are going to get pretty upset with them. The AI won't. They'll just say, hey, you're late the fifth day in a row and you need to do better. So what I see is the AI really being a coworker to the boss, because what humans are great at is showing empathy, providing ethical judgment, and really having the ability to really inspire and motivate employees. And that's not something a robot's terribly good at. So I do think, over the next 5 to 10 years, AI is going to be a valuable coworker to bosses to help make them more effective. We're big believers at Allata that a human in the loop is critical, and left to its own devices, I think people will be much less motivated to answer to a robot than to a person. But humans and computers have always worked better together.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Now, Matt Rosen, since the last time we talked about AI, what are some of the other developments besides AI bosses that are coming out with AI? A lot of people are afraid of it. We keep hearing about deep fakes and whatnot and the elections and all that. But I think there are some positive aspects to AI. It obviously makes things easier for a lot of people. I'm thinking in particular for small businesses. Like you said, you're a consultant for different clients, and I'm sure that this kind of fills in the gap for a lot of people where they'd otherwise have to spend a lot of money to get certain things done.
Yeah, what AI is really great at is automating basic tasks that are pretty boring for humans, and oftentimes we get them wrong where AI generally doesn't. It's great at creating insights across vast amounts of data, reading lots of stuff, interpreting it, giving us some feedback that might take humans weeks or months to do, and it's great at creating a starting point. But I always insist that there should be a human reviewing the outputs of AI before they're put to actual use. And the AI technology is developing faster than humans' ability to really comprehend how to use it. OpenAI just came out with a preview of something they're calling Strawberry or Q learning, and it's a reinforcement learning technology where basically the AI learns and it can complete a set of tasks one after another. So the AIs are getting better, but at the end of the day, for companies, data is truly their differentiator, and most organizations have not yet harnessed their data in a way to make the AI most effective. What we're seeing is at an individual level, people are using it effectively. One example we have within our own company is we write performance reviews for all of our 350 employees globally. We uploaded our performance management framework called the Growth Framework, and we uploaded feedback, and we were able to save 75% of the time and actually give people much better reviews than we had in the past. And, for us, time is money. And so being able to save, tens of thousands of hours was huge for us. So I think there are ways it can be incorporated as a huge time saver, but it wasn't robots delivering those performance reviews. It was still people's mentors and managers walking them through the feedback, making sure they learn for it and, improve over the next 6 months before their next review.
Outstanding. Now, Matt Rosen, would you kindly let everybody know how they could learn more about your work with Allata?
Yeah, thanks, Rich. If you go to Allata.com, there's a whole section around AI. We've got a number of client use cases out there. We've got a number of guidebooks on how to deploy it. Also, if you go to my LinkedIn or Allata's LinkedIn, you'll see lots of videos and case studies and videos we've posted. So please reach out to us. I'd love to talk more. If what you've heard tonight is interesting and you'd like to continue the conversation.
Outstanding. Matt Rosen, great job as always. I appreciate it. Hope to talk with you soon, brother. Take care.
Thanks, Rich. Have a great evening.
You bet. Likewise. And folks, we continue our conversation more on what's going on in the world tonight. Your calls and more coming up straight ahead. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And you're going to be shocked at what some people are calling shows about, right? The same way you guys call here. There's a show on C-SPAN called Washington Journal. Well, somebody called from Louisiana, of all places, and was praising Trump's would-be assassins, kind of like, hey, good job. I'm guessing it's a good job you missed. I hope, but I don't think it is. We're going to find out more about that when we come back and talk about how the media is inciting violence against Donald Trump.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And the show on C-SPAN, Washington Journal, people from all over the country call in, similar to what we're doing, but they do it in the morning. It's on TV. And somebody called in, and the craziest thing, they were praising Trump's would-be assassins. Listen to this.
Louisiana, Willie, Democrat, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say I'm a very patriotic American. I did 20 years in the military, 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded in 1966, went back in 68. And I look at myself and think about, as a military man, we pulled the close with, kill, capture, destroy the enemy by all means available. And to see we let this man Trump destroy America, and I look at it and say, well, these two people had to step up and take that shot. I'm 83, nothing to lose.
I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating violence, are you?
Not violence. I'm talking about defending my country.
All right.
Okay. It's not violence. I'm talking about killing a guy. Is that violent where you come from? Unfreaking real. Wow. I mean, kudos to them for catching it and calling it out and saying, hey, bro, I'm not going to do that. And listen, I give a lot of rope around here, right? If anybody's listened to this show for a while, that's probably one of the biggest critiques I get is, oh, you let people go on and on and on and on. And guilty as charged. I do, because I like to give you enough rope to hang yourself, right? You're making your point. You're going to make it fair and square. As long as there's time in the segment and I can let you do it without losing the audience and, killing our ratings, I'm going to let you make your point. Whether I agree with it or not, then I'll respond. But this was crazy. This guy really, and again, I wish that I would have that guy, Willie, on my show. Willie, if you're out there, please give me a call, 833-482-5337. And you know why? Because I want to have that conversation. This is a conversation I want to have because I think it's so revealing, right? I could find out he believes that it's his patriotic duty as a guy who did 20 in the military. That's what he said. He did 20 in the military, right? This is not a guy who signed up for 4 years after high school, did his time, came back. 20 in the military is a career person. And somebody who spent 20 years in the military is saying that he thinks that, these people stepped up and took those shots. He has sipped some serious Kool-Aid, right? I mean, he's really, really been fed by, I'm going to say, the mainstream media, right? Whether he's watching C-SPAN or whatever it is. And C-SPAN's not as guilty as the other ones because they don't really report much. They just, carry certain things, congressional hearings and things like that. But, if he gets his daily dose of MSNBC, like a dear family member that I have, and, whenever I say anything positive about Trump, they just kind of ignore it. And they think, I wonder why. Why this person likes Trump? Because they've never heard anything good about Trump. They've only heard bad things, in fact, about any Republican. And it's a shame, and then the whole reproductive rights and just it's such a line of BS. And I know people are thinking, but Rich, what about the line of BS that you're feeding people all day? Well, listen, I'll accept that critique. The problem here is that none of my line of BS leads to shooting anybody. Never has, never will. I believe in having a dissenting opinion. I believe in having differences that we can talk about, have a discussion. That's what the national discourse is all about. I love it. I live for that stuff. And I don't mean the debate. I mean actually having a conversation, learning about the other side. And that's why I said I would love to have this guy on my show, because I'd love to unpack that and say, as a patriot of the United States military, you love your country, you're a veteran. Why do you think that it's necessary for one or two lone wolf individuals to take the entire system of justice into their hands? Why is it that a man that's facing 400 years in jail and 4 major cases, right, criminal cases, why not just let justice be done? If he's guilty, one of those cases is going to go in the favor of the government. And then we the people will have the justice we're looking for. We don't need this blue-haired pro-Ukrainian whack job who did the BlackRock commercial, whatever his name is, Routh, or the other crazy man that's dead now, the young guy, Crooks. Is that his name? Matthew Crooks? We don't need that. Thomas Crooks. I don't know. You know who I'm talking about. July 13th shooter. The point here is we don't need rogue actors. It's not like this is Venezuela. It's not, right? Unless it is, right? And see, now you're making my point for me. If you believe that we can't achieve justice because it's rigged, then Trump is right. Do you think it's rigged by Biden and Kamala Harris? That they can't achieve justice, that they can't put Trump in jail? Or is it just that they're trying so hard, but they're not good at it, and there's still a glimmer of hope in society, and God has his hand on this stuff, and that this is why Trump is still walking around? And I'm going to opt for choice B. I believe that they may not be great at their deep state activity, but more than anything, I think there is the favor of God on Trump. I really do. Because how else does one explain how you dodge a bullet by looking at a screen to talk about, some numbers or this latest incident. And the fact that, what they tried to crucify him for originally is what's helping him in the polls right now in Arizona, mass deportation. Sometimes it's becoming, and it behooves you to just separate fact from fiction and listen. And I think if people listen to Trump, forgetting that they hate that guy, that they don't like the persona of Trump, but listen to the words, maybe read a transcript of what he's saying. I think most people would agree that on the merits, on the facts, on policy, I'm going to go with a boxing analogy, pound for pound, Trump is better for America. That's just my thought. Anyway, let us go to your calls momentarily. Again, the number 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
He needs more protection. Something bad is going to happen. But what we also have to have is a discussion in our country where networks like CNN and MSNBC are daily saying that he is a danger to democracy and someone has to do something about it. These left-wing networks aren't saying he has bad policy. Hillary Clinton wasn't saying he had bad policy. She's saying he's a danger. The implication is we won't be able to stop him through the election. We must stop him otherwise. And they are inciting every crazy or angry person in our country. And frankly, CNN and MSNBC need to tone down their rhetoric because they are part of the incitement to violence.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton yesterday said she doesn't understand why the media can't get on this narrative. It's a consistent narrative that Trump is a threat. This from the woman who lied and made up a story that Trump colluded with Russia back in 2016 and actually paid for a Steele dossier to come up with just embellishment and lies and actually made it go viral across the world. She has some nerve calling somebody else a threat.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton was the only one I know of who actually colluded with Russia.
Exactly.
Bizarre. That's Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, on Fox Business Channel with Maria Bartiromo. And he says that Hillary and the left-wing media are inciting violence against Donald Trump. Now, I've played a clip for you a bunch of times, and I'm going to play it for you again right now, where you've got Rick Wilson and Chuck Schumer and some other pendejo that are all saying things about how, the intelligence community has been offended by Donald Trump, and they're going to come after him and kill him. Listen to this.
Let me give you one bottom line. As a former government official, government's going to kill this guy.
And the donor class can't just sit back on the sidelines and say, oh, well, don't worry, this will all work itself out. They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. And that's a fact.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
They're going to have to put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact. He literally said that. That's crazy. Anyway, that's what's going on here. These guys are all over the place calling for violence against Trump, normalizing violence against Trump, making it seem commonplace to murder Donald Trump. This is dehumanization at its best, and nobody should support this at all. We shouldn't support it in the dehumanization of anybody, right? I stand by that. When people tell me, oh, but the kids and the women that are dying in Gaza, I feel badly about that. Right? And we should. They're people, irrespective of being surrounded by terrorists. Rich Valdez coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. We like to call it Open Phone America, where we get open phones across America. Callers from every part of the country can call in. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-Valdez. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys. And let me see some of the headlines that I went over before, just to give you a little recap here. Congressman Eli Crane has been warning about a potential mole inside the Secret Service. We got a little clip on that. I want you to check this out.
My advice to the president is to bolster your private security around you, not only to fill holes in the gaps that the Secret Service continues to leave open, but also to watch the watchers. There is a very real possibility at this point that there is a mole within the Secret Service team surrounding the president or at the highest levels of the Secret Service. And so he does need somebody, a group of individuals around him that are loyal to him and are not politicized. They're not worried about seeking promotion, and they don't answer to people that hate the president. And so, that would be my advice to the president at this point.
Again, that is Congressman Eli Crane warning a potential mole in the Secret Service. Let's see what else we got. The Teamsters refused to endorse a presidential candidate for the first time in 28 years as their members overwhelmingly backed Trump. And I guess their president wanted to go in a different direction, and they couldn't because they didn't have the backing of the organization. So, in effect, the membership, the rank and file, all kind of rallied behind Trump. The Fed, Jerome Powell, announced a interest rate cut by 0.5 point. I think we speculated about that the last time we talked about it. 50 basis point cut that would come prior to Election Day. It came a little sooner than I thought. I thought it was going to come in October. That means they'll probably do it again, bringing it down a full point to really solidify the electoral landslide that the left is looking for, right? And they're going to say, oh, look, under the Harris-Biden administration, we absolutely are doing so good in our economy. Things are great. Look at your stock market portfolios. Look at your 401ks. This is fantastic. Never been better. Forget about what happened when Trump was here and things were really good. Forget about that. Don't believe your lying eyes or your bank account. Just listen to what we're saying. And listen, that's a good thing. I think that will spur some people to start making moves, right? If you can get a mortgage right now for 6 and they bring it down to 5.5, and let's just say it goes down even further, maybe to 5. We're kind of back in action there, right? It's not the 2.5 that it was during the Trump years, but it's a start. And people are going to see it that way. And this is why people have to use the memory of an elephant, right? That never forgets, because you can't just say, I'm going to vote for president based on what happened in September and October, and I'm going to do it in the first week of November. It doesn't really work that way. At least it doesn't work that way for me. So that's the story on that. We're going to have E.J. Antoni with us. He's going to give us the scoop on this interest rate cut by 0.5 point by the Fed. Then, in a second wave of walkie-talkie explosions, more Hezbollah people saw their walkie-talkies blow up. That actually happened. That's a thing. Let me see what the details on this one. Let me see. 9 dead, 300 injured. Let me see. Yeah. BBC tracking the reports on a live blog. Image of smoke plumes rising over Beirut. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Really not that interesting. Anyway, that happened. We continue. It was interesting yesterday. Not so interesting today. It's kind of like a rerun. Let's see here. Oh. Alleged attempted Trump assassin was flagged by a second federal agency. Yesterday, we found out the FBI knew about him. Now, today, we're finding out that a second federal agency knew who this guy was. And again, he slipped through their hands as well, which only reinforces the conversation that we had earlier, right, with Jonathan Gilliam and others, when we talked about this person potentially being an asset or a human source of one of these federal law enforcement agencies, which is why they let him get away with so many things. Anyway, Ryan Routh, the man accused of attempting to assassinate Donald Trump on September 15th, landed in Honolulu back in June of 23 on his way home from Ukraine and went through customs. He made some spontaneous comments to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents, and they decided to interview him on the spot and flagged him for further investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. This is according to an exclusive report at Just the News. That's John Solomon's site. John Solomon's a great reporter and editor. And he was actually the executive editor when I used to write a column for the Washington Times many years ago. So that's how I know John Solomon. Anyway, let's see. However, DHS officials declined to pursue the case, according to records, saying that Homeland Security Investigations was contacted and refused the case. The interview memo stated. The records further reflected that Customs and Border Patrol officials were aware of Routh's travel to Warsaw, Poland, Istanbul, Turkey, and just those two places in 2022 and 2023. In addition, they reveal that Mr. Routh admitted in his interview that he had been recruiting as many as 100 foreign fighters from Taiwan, Afghanistan, and Moldova to join Ukraine's war against Russia. Routh even gave U.S. agents who interviewed him a business card that portrayed him as the director of a group called International Volunteer Center that also claimed to have contact in Syria, Pakistan, and Israel. He also describes how he'd underwritten his efforts to recruit foreigners to assist in Kiev. Let's see. Whatever. That's a little boring there. Anyway, you get the picture. I can't spend all day on this because then we'll never get to the calls. So that's that part of it. Yeah, that's it. I'll stop right there. That's plenty. So, mole in the Secret Service. Let's go to Rob, Ozark, Alabama, WDBT. Rob, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. I'll tell you who the mole was. I know exactly who it was. It was Kai Trump, his granddaughter.
She doesn't work for the Secret Service.
Oh, no. The mole's not in the Secret Service. On July 18th, there was an interview between Martha McCollum, Trump Jr., and Kai Trump. And, I mean, she's a teenager. I can't really follow.
I don't understand the connection. How does she get in touch with Mr. Routh and tell him, hey, my grandfather's playing golf on September 15th on a Sunday morning, go get him? You're making a crazy allegation.
She didn't make the specific day, but she said every weekend, me and my grandfather play golf together at this golf course.
By that standard, MSNBC is also a mole, and everybody else that reports on Trump's frequently playing golf on Sundays. I don't think that's much of anything, but nice try. Thank you, Rob in Ozark. Better luck next time. Shout out to WDBT. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, I love this one. Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri, streaming us on KTTR. Bill, our resident historian. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. I enjoyed your discussion on George Soros and the Hungarian-born fellow and maker of lots of money and big Democrat. But I also remembered two other people that Otto Preminger, the famous movie, I don't know him. Films Spirit of St. Louis.
Okay.
Jimmy Stewart, Advice and Consent, which is a really great movie. And there's a guy from Hayti, Missouri, who was also his screenwriter for Otto. And I just thought it was interesting, and I thought I'd give you a call tonight here and learned a little bit about Soros, and I guess he's still alive.
Yeah, he is. He's really old, too. His son, Alexander, really is the brains behind the operation now. But amazing how this guy is still so influential in American politics and is happy to spend a lot of money. And you know what? I guess if I made a lot of money like that, I would likely spend a lot of it on political causes, too, because, you you put your money where your mouth is, right? You stand up for what you believe in, and that's what he believes in, despite my disagreeing with him or thinking he's wrong. So, yeah, I get that. And, Bill, what's going on besides, the Jimmy Stewart movie? What's going on in Jefferson City, Missouri?
Well, we had a great air show last Saturday and Sunday, and I got to go to that and saw a Mitchell B-25 bomber that flew from the raid on Tokyo with the famous Jimmy Doolittle. So that was kind of fun, and it was just a great air show, and that's what's going on in Jeff City. We're hanging in there. Lots of some of our junior senators and senior senators have been talking quite a bit about the Trump assassination thing. Josh Hawley and
sure,
Eric Schmidt.
Oh, well, two great guys. Eric Schmidt's a great attorney. He was AG before running in the Senate, and Josh Hawley's a fierce fighter down there in Washington. So I'm glad to hear that they're out there making some noise, banging the pots and pans for the truth, because that stuff has to be spoken about. Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri, as always, I appreciate you being our official/unofficial resident historian. Always a pleasure, sir. Godspeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You bet. And let me see. All right, I'll take a quick pause right here, and then we'll come back. We got calls from WDEL in Delaware, WRNN South Carolina, KBFI in Idaho. Let's see, WLS Chicago, streaming all the way in Arkansas. How about that? WCBD in Cumberland, Maryland. And KUMA in Pendleton, Oregon. So we're spanning the entire country. We're going to get to your calls, momentarily. Give me 3 minutes. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez. We continue our conversation. And let's see, where do I want to go here? We have a lot of calls. A lot of people want to weigh in on these things. Let's go to one of my old buddies here, Doc in Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Doc, how are you, sir?
After listening to you tonight, I'm great. You had a great show, as always. Anybody in this country who says the hand of God is protecting President Trump gets my vote. I'll tell you what's going on. I know the deep state. I've run into them in my past, in my career in the military and all the things. They're dangerous. They're not rogue operators. They answer to highest echelons of this country's intelligence services. Anybody who is worth shooting, President Trump, JFK, RFK, is worth my vote. I'll make that statement on national radio. If President Trump is worth trying to assassinate, he gets my vote. He must be doing something right. That's the way it is.
Amen to that, brother. I'm with you. And listen, I this is what I'm talking about. The fact that I don't know how this gets lost in the media, and I get it. They lie and they gaslight. I do. But, I mean, you've got to be a special kind of naive to hear somebody say that the threat to democracy is Trump when Trump's the one they're trying to kill. I mean, the math doesn't math for me on that one. To me, if they're coming after you, they're coming after you. There's a reason, like you just said. There's a reason for it. And it's not because he's so bad. If it was, everybody'd want him dead. And he's not. He's leading in at least half of the polls he leads. He's up by 1 or 2 points in most of the ones in these battleground states, neck and neck in others. And a couple he might be down by 1. And again, these are questionably suspect polls at that, right? So I think it by and large, you know what? I don't know if I sent it, but there was a clip I saw earlier, and I wish I had it. But the woman is on TV. It's a CBS News clip, and she says, we couldn't find a Harris voter, a Harris supporter. We could not find one on the ground. And I thought to myself, of course they're hard-pressed. These people don't really exist the way that they're being portrayed to exist. You see these polls, and you think it's neck and neck. But I can tell you, I don't meet people that are like, oh, man, I can't. I haven't heard somebody that actually is like, man, I am so thrilled about the Democrat candidate. I have not. in a long time, a very long time. I'm talking about like when Biden ran, I didn't meet anybody who was pro-Biden. Anybody. My most left-wing friends were like, look, I can't stand that guy. I mean, I'll take him over Trump. And it's been the case since 2019. Nobody wanted Biden. Nobody wants Harris. People might have wanted Bernie Sanders because he had a magnetic personality, but his policies were even to the left of theirs, or at least neck and neck with Kamala's. So, Doc, I agree with you. If they're trying to put a bullet in Trump and he's standing up for what others have died for and others have warned about, right? JFK died over this stuff, in my opinion. Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Eisenhower, talking about the military-industrial complex. There's a lot at stake here. Trump is standing up to so much of it, and God bless him for doing it. So, yeah, kudos to him for standing up to them, and I'm with him. I'm going to make sure I do whatever I can to get the guy elected, even if that means spending all morning on Election Day giving every last person I know a ride to the polls, because that's really what it comes down to. Doc.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thanks for your call, Doc. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. We continue. Let's go to Larry, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Larry, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Yeah, this is Larry the Patriot. I was born on the shores of Lake Chagagog, Manchar, Jagog, Chabunagungamog.
Oh, well, thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. I don't really know what that is, and I don't have an interpreter, but Godspeed to you. Let's continue with Frank, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Go right ahead.
Most people with the criminal record that Ralph had would have great difficulty finding work. How did Ralph support himself while he was doing all this traveling around?
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking this guy, look, these trips are not cheap. A trip to Ukraine, not a cheap trip. The AK-47, not cheap at all. None of this stuff is cheap. I've been thinking the same thing. That's why I asked Tony Schaefer on Monday night, and I said, hey, look, you're a former spy. To me, I think this guy's a spy. But when you look at him, he doesn't look that sharp. So I think Tony Schaefer said, look, I'm not going to say he's a spy. Maybe he's some sort of asset. Probably right. And I think that's probably the right way to look at this. This guy is likely, giving information somewhere, somehow, obtaining information, working with the intel agencies, with the feds, maybe both, being that the FBI has become so intel-focused in recent years. And this is how he operates. I shared a story. I don't come from a horrible neighborhood, but, I'd say half of the guys I grew up with, or at least a good 40%, ended up in jail for drugs. It was a big thing in my era when I was a teenager or young man. And I could tell you, I know one of the guys that I grew up with up until recently, like very recently, like a month ago recently, since high school. I've been out of high school for 25 years. This guy's been robbing drug dealers. It's been an open secret on the streets. And up until recently, and the word was always he was giving information to the feds so they would let him rob these drug dealers. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a similar situation going on here, Frank, with Mr. Routh. Because, come on, how do you fund an operation like that, traveling all over the place, and then moving to Hawaii of all places? I haven't even been to Hawaii. Frank, thanks for your call, brother. Godspeed to you. WCBC in the building. Folks, we continue with the rest of your calls. Chicago streaming, Oregon, KUMA, KBFI, and more. 833-4-VALDEZ.
He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, listen to this. This guy named Hernandez-Garnier and his wife are taking a flight. They're leaving. I think they're leaving Vegas to Miami or vice versa. And he went to get a hair transplant. This guy gets a hair transplant, and And there's, some bleeding associated with that. He gets on the plane, but he doesn't have a clean bandage, so he doesn't want to put a dirty bandage on his bleeding. And again, this is not gushing blood. He's sitting next to his wife. It's not like he's going to bleed on some stranger. And he's not bleeding on anybody. It's just, a little bit of droplets of blood are kind of running down the side. Somebody complained to the flight attendant, said, hey, this guy's bleeding. She says, can you put the bandages on? He says, I don't have a clean bandage. I'm letting it air out. And she says, you got to get off the plane. He says, I'm not getting off the plane. And then his wife, from what I understand in their report, she gets a little belligerent and says that she's not getting off. And anyway, listen, we got a report on this. Listen to this.
I have a lot of pain. Yeah. I have pain here. I'm pain here in the head.
Eugenio Hernandez Garnier is speaking out after being released from jail Tuesday night. He flew from Las Vegas to Miami to get a hair transplant and liposuction. But when he and his wife were on their flight back home, he says passengers alerted flight attendants with concerns about him bleeding and his medical condition. Hernandez Garnier showed us paperwork from his doctor stating that he was clear to fly and go back to work with no restrictions. He says he showed it to the flight attendants and was told this.
She told me, I don't care. I don't care.
Police say the couple was arrested for refusing to comply after multiple warnings.
So now is it American Airlines? Yeah, I think it's American Airlines. They put out a statement saying during the boarding of American Airlines Flight 1858 on August 19th with service from Miami to Las Vegas, 2 customers became disruptive and were non-compliant with crew member instructions. Ooh. It goes on to say that as a result of that, law enforcement was contacted and, obviously they were subsequently removed, right? Law enforcement responded and removed both customers from the aircraft. We thank our crew members for their professionalism and apologize to our customers for the inconvenience. All I can tell you is, look, I can't imagine a scenario where that works, where you tell them, no, I'm not going anywhere, and that's okay. Now, truth be told, I'm the youngest of a big family. I grew up, having big brothers that would solve my problems. Where my attitude comes from, right? And I try to check it, but the reality is, I know who I am, and I try to curb my own enthusiasm at times. But I know that this is going to get me in trouble, even though that's probably the same response I would have, right? I'd probably say, all right, hold on, let me figure this out. Can you get me a clean gauze bandage? I thought I had one. I don't know. I would try to come up with some solution here and say, do we really have to get off the plane? But I would try to negotiate out of this. I wouldn't become belligerent, though. I don't think I would. But you never know, right? I've had some bad days. But my question here to everybody listening, and the number again, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. What do you do? Are you the Karen on this flight? Do you say, oh my gosh, that guy 3 seats over is bleeding on some lady that's not me, happens to be his own wife, sitting next to her on the plane, and I'm not flying because that man is bleeding? Like, what was the need for a guy with a couple of, what if I cut myself shaving every now and again? Sometimes I do Newsmax on the weekends. I'll be doing it this weekend, right? I'll be in New York City, right in Manhattan on the east side at the Newsmax studios, and I will likely shave that morning. Now, I shave with a straight razor. Because I sharpen up my beard. I try to make it nice and tight. And I used to be a barber, so that's not that hard for me. But sometimes, because I use something called a dry shave technique, I don't use any hot towel. I don't use any shaving cream. I just use an extremely sharp razor on dry skin. And certain parts of my face, like right above my chin, below my lip, if you're not super delicate there, I can get cut there. And guess what? There's times where I bleed. What do? I grab a little piece of toilet paper like my dad taught me when I was a little kid. You put it on there if you have styptic powder or a styptic pencil. But whoever has that, right? I never have that. So I put the toilet paper on there until the blood coagulates a little bit. Then you take it off and, you go on. Now, there's been times where I've left that little paper on there and I see myself on TV later and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got a little piece of toilet paper on my face. And that's never a good look. And nobody even told me. Thank you, producers. But my bottom line here is, what do you do? Are you the person that's going to rat this guy out and say, hey, look, this guy's bleeding around. I'm not going to fly with him on a couple hours flight to Vegas to Miami or whatever it is. Or are you going to, ignore it and mind your business? Were these people right to rat him out? Were they right to ask him to get off? Was it wrong to ask him to get off? Was he wrong to respond the way he did? I would love your opinions on this. The phone number again, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Is the phone number. And I also want to get your thoughts on the exploding pagers and walkie-talkies, on the Secret Service and the potential mole, and everything else that we've been talking about tonight. Let's go to Joe in Salem, Arkansas, who's streaming on WLS out of Chicago. Go right ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Rich, I'm going to triple the motion on Doc there. You seconded that everything he said was spot on. People need to understand there's going to be several more attempts. I told my brother in Michigan 3 months ago that the court things are not working. God is watching him on that. And the shooting is about to begin. And I told him there could be up to half a dozen, 6 the number of the beast attempts, and none of them will work out for them. All they're doing is they're ruining the lives of patsies one at a time. And people need to realize when God says, prayer of a righteous man availeth much, there's millions of people praying for his protection, Christians, and mainly Christians and others. And, if God be for you, no man can be against you. Now, they need to understand this and stop the nonsense, because his hand indeed is on Mr. Trump, President Trump. And so he's got plans for him. He's got plans for you. By the way, I whether you like it or not, I put you on my prayer list for constant protection, because we need people like you.
Well, Joe, that's very kind.
Well, absolutely. And, this BlackRock thing. Now, he keeps up on the Internet, kind of like you do. And he told me this, the first boy was found on a BlackRock commercial, and the second guy has been. I heard you mention that a while ago.
Yeah, we did. We played a clip of that. It was actually Eric Prince that mentioned it on television, and the former Navy SEAL and head of that private army known as Blackwater. And I agree. His statement was the statistical probability of both of these guys being in a BlackRock commercial is none. No chance. Now, I don't know what the real statistical probability is, but I get it. And I guess I'm such a cynic, because I've either been around this stuff for too long, or I'm just a cynic by nature. But I tend to think that's how it is. Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't it work that way, right? It's kind of like if you told me, hey, look, I went down to Oregon, and instead of bumping into Michael in Pendleton and, him, having a slice of pizza or having a beer with the guy, I got my butt kicked by 5 guys wearing black masks. I'm going to automatically presume that those are the anti-fascist group Antifa, because they love to be out there. There's a big group out there, the Rose City Antifa, that's out there. So if you tell me some idiot, wanted to kill Trump, I'm going to say he's probably funded by the deep state. And where do these guys get their money? BlackRock's a huge part of this deep state funding. George Soros and his acolytes are a big part of this funding. So, in the last election cycle, Mark Zuckerberg was a big part of the funding, especially with the mailboxes, the drop boxes for the mail-in ballots. So, to me, it makes nothing but sense that there's a correlation here. Just like when they said, but the girl was a sorority sister of Kamala Harris. So what? To me, all these people are the same. Birds of a feather flock together. It's kind of like saying I went to the Conservative Political Action Conference, and you'll never guess. Most of the people there were not only conservatives, but they were Christians too. Yeah, duh. That's what you're going to find. You're not going to find a ton of people that aren't of like mind. It's a big tent for sure. I went to a CPAC once, and there was somebody there named Lady MAGA. Lady MAGA is a guy that dresses as a girl. I don't know if he's a transsexual or if he's a drag queen, but either way, he's a guy. and not a critique on that. I'm just saying that's the case. And I know that there was some controversy about it with some groups saying, some very conservative groups saying, I don't like the idea that this guy is here at CPAC. And I may not like that either, but I would like even less for CPAC to say something and say, this guy can't come. Who are we to do that, right? So ultimately, to me, I think you have an affinity amongst people. These guys want to kill Trump? Sure. They probably share a lot of similar viewpoints on their political ideology, and they probably have way more friends in common than we know, because that's how these people operate. Just like, the people in my circle, I've got some Washington people, I got radio people, I got some TV people. That's what I spend my time doing, right? I talk to these people throughout the day. I get the scoop on things. And, some of them I'll invite in, and I'll say, hey, why don't you come on the show tonight and we'll talk about whatever. That's why oftentimes if it's anything related to NATO or anything, I'll bring in the former deputy representative to NATO, General Blaine Holt. Why? Because Blaine Holt was the NATO rep for our country, and he's a brigadier general and he knows what's going on. And who better source than him to get a lot of this information? But I try to bring you the best people that I can so that we can know what's going on, because these people are in the mix. And that's the point I'm making here, is that they're in the mix. So it doesn't surprise me in the least that these guys are in the mix with BlackRock, that they're in the mix with the intelligence community, with the feds. They're all in it together. It's one big incestuous family for them, right? And I would say it's the same on the other side, but it's really not. It's not as incestuous. It really isn't. It's because people come and go. On our side, there's a lot more freedom. I think a lot less judgment. I'm not saying it's judgment free, but there's a lot less judgment. Whereas on the other side, they're kind of like, no, absolutely not. If you're like this, we don't like you. And that's why they're like, oh, Trump, you're like this, we want to kill you. We don't like you. We don't care if they kill you. It's okay if they kill you, because that's how they roll. They're very, even though you would say the absolutist is likely the conservative, I think the leftist in this situation is more of an absolutist than we are. Anyway, Joe in Salem, again, thank you for your prayers and your kind words. I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Before we go here, I go to a lot of cattle sales and see what's going on. I used to be in cattle and goat and horse. Now, Saturday night, they had the biggest horse sale ever. It went all night long. Trucks and trailers, a half a mile, huge parking lot full, couldn't even find a place. But listen, I got around talking to people. We're 20 to 30% yellow dog Democrats. So this is a Trump county, but when I went and talked to the Democrats, they said, you need to get with your Republican buddies over there. And I said, listen, you think that this Biden regime has caused high cattle prices, highest ever. And boy, they're selling goats, cattle, horses now before election, because they think Trump's going to come in and ruin all those prices, you see.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. Because you know what? It was actually the Democrats that proposed a big hike on that and putting a tax on cattle so that it would be less cost effective to actually sell beef, because they said that, cows and cow farming created climate change issues and they want to eliminate meat altogether. Joe in Salem, Arkansas, thank you for the call, brother. Godspeed to you. Folks are coming right back with the speed round.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, to the phones we go. 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Doug calling us from Polo, Illinois, listening on WLS. Go right ahead, Doug.
Hey, I wanted to point out something about the debate. I know it's been a while ago, but nobody's really talked about this. Kamala Harris was acting. She was performing up there. I've been in theater for a long time, just nothing major, but I've done it for a long time. And a lot of things she was doing was performing. She was looking the part. Like, for instance, if you wanted your audience to think you were in deep thought, you would put your hand below your chin and you kind of stare off into space like you were really listening to what was being said.
Right.
So it was all an act. But the other thing, which I haven't heard anybody talk about, is when she was writing notes, there was one point in time where there was an angle where you could see her pen wasn't even down on the paper. She wasn't writing anything. She was pretending to write. I'm like, how phony can you be? There's no chance. I just had to make sure that somebody else looked into this because I saw it.
Yeah, I'll try and see if we can find the tape, but it doesn't surprise me in the least. And I can tell you that not the first time I've seen it. I've been on television sets, news sets and whatnot, where you'll see people, anchors and whatnot, writing notes, and they're not writing anything. Half the time they're making like a little doodle in the margin or making a circle next to a point that they already made, almost like checking it off, but not actually writing anything. And just sometimes you need to have make it look like you're writing something, because there's 10 or 5 or 10 seconds after you close the segment where the camera's still rolling on you. And, you don't want to get caught, getting up and taking your mic off, going to the bathroom, something like that. So I get that. But at the debate, I'm with you. You're an actor and you've seen these techniques that she's using and being employed there. It makes all the sense in the world. I think most politicians thrive in the performance art, and she's no different. Doug, thank you for your call. I appreciate you listening. I hope you'll call in again soon. Doug in Polo, Illinois, WLS. And let's see, where else do we want to go? Let's see what we got here. Let's go to Steve in Morehead City, WTKF. Go right ahead.
Hey, good morning. How are you this morning?
Fantastic, thank you.
Good. One thing I might mention, if you would please, it is. I love listening to you, and I enjoy talk radio. But stop saying No, I don't know. That's
Spit it out, Steve. Let's go.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. People eating dogs and cats. Yes, I can tell you right now, and it is true. You can go down the street right here.
Well, I don't think anybody's debating that it's true or not true. I think the debate was over, was it Haitian migrants or not, right? There were police reports of incidents of small animals being eaten. That's a matter of fact. It's a matter of public record. The debate was, they were saying that Trump lied because it wasn't Haitian immigrants. This is a part of a larger problem, Steve, because at the border, there were people coming in from Senegal and other parts of the world that were saying they were Haitian. Why would they say that? Because Haitians and Cubans are treated differently under U.S. immigration law, and there's different programs for them when they get here. So it made a lot of sense for every last person coming from any part of Africa, if they can fit the role, even if they're coming from dark-skinned Colombians, if you can say that you're a Haitian, things could possibly be better for you once you get here. So I think that's part of the problem that we're seeing with that particular situation. Steve in Morehead City, thanks for your call, WTKF. Folks, Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Albany, New York, WGDJ. Linda, very quickly, go right ahead.
Yes, if the Secret Service had put drones up ahead of time before Trump went on the golf course, they should have seen that guy who was supposedly hanging around for 12 hours was
You're
already
right.
out there.
Hanging out in the bushes. Right. They would have caught him. And I understand they eventually used drones to catch the bad guy, but you're right. They should be using that. And they should just have a better perimeter set up. And I think that's been established. You're 100% right, Linda. Thank you for the call and for always listening to the show. I appreciate it. I hope you'll call back soon. Big shout out to WGDJ, Paul Vandenberg country. And let's continue. Where do we go now? We go to Michael, Pendleton, Oregon, KUMA. Go right ahead.
Rich, great shows, great guests this weekend, and great callers. I just want to say there is a lot of BS on the radio, but definitely not your show. And another great American conservative show I listen to.
Oh, well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Michael and Pendleton, got to cut you off because they're kicking us out. When the music plays, we got to go. I love you, brother. God bless you. Paul in Boise, shout out to you. KBFI. I owe you a shirt, Paul. It's coming your way sooner than you think. Hasta la próxima. Take care and God bless. I'm Rich Valdez.